So this is my year 1, 2, and 3 in sections. Permaculture food forest, zone 6. That's the primary food forest. And then we have 3 berms here that I've dug. And these are first year now. It's a locust tree that I cut down. A elderberry, some rosemary, blue anise hyssop, Swiss chard, verbena. I think it's an acorn squash. Here's a sea berry, female variety. Another little sea berry with squash and some Swiss chard that was eaten by deer. Some parsley there. Here's a male sea berry. And then a male Sancho male pepper for my Szechuan pepper plant, which is the female. There's some more parsley. So back there is some squash again, some blue anise hyssop. This is a flying dragon hardy citrus. There's some squash here. More squash. Here's the female Szechuan pepper, volunteer squash, Swiss chard, parsley, and a Oregon grape similar to a holly, but it has tons of berries. Another squash. This is a almond tree. There's another almond tree right there on the berm behind it to pollinate it. More squash, blue anise hyssop, Swiss chard. This is a persimmon tree. Don't recall the variety. Here's an autumn olive. More squash. Here's a baby rhubarb. A lupine that got eaten by the deer. This is a nectaplum. Sweet Z, maybe? Nectaplum? Can't recall. At the base of this is some tomatoes that I just threw here last year and put some mulch on top of. Those are sun gold tomatoes. Here's another tiny little peach that wanted to give me a fruit, so I'm letting it. This is a Howard Miracle Plum with some lupine, some yarrow, more Swiss chard, anise blue hyssop, sage, lavender. That's Mexican tarragon. These are poppies, nasturtium, lupine, okra, more sage. There's that hazelnut again. And here's the now 2-year-old and 3-year-old food forest. So here, just right on the corner, we have peas growing along the fence with Swiss chard that overwintered, I guess, or a beet. This is Alpine strawberries. We just ate a bunch of them yesterday underneath a Bartlett pear, which is in its second growing season with me. There's mint at the base of that. Beet going to seed that overwintered, some more Swiss chard. Here you see some potatoes coming up, some lamb's ears, verbena. There's more potatoes going down this row, although my tomatoes are between these stakes. You just can't even see the plants right now, they're real small. There's perennialized garlic coming up in the middle. Google that. There's a echinacea, pink coneflower. Here's valerian root, great pollinator. And then in the entrance is a hardy kiwi. You can see they're flowering. At the base of this is wild strawberry. I'm going to get rid of them soon. Here's my second little asparagus patch. At the opening of the food forest, we have a native wild blackberry. And then coming in is all this honeysuckle that are blooming. Smells amazing. Here's spiderwort. To the left when I come in is marjoram, columbine, winter savory, beets. This is corn. These are wild blackberries. There's corn spread throughout here. More verbena. Behind that are leeks down this row. More corn. Yarrow. And then just to the right, underneath this Shipova pear, second growing season Shipova pear, we have verbena, a basil. It's a butterfly flower. This is wintergreen berry. More leeks. This here is a Gala Apple. Underneath the Gala Apple is this weed that's turning out to be a fantastic chop and drop mulch plant. And then we have more lamb's ears, mint. There's columbine in there. There's lettuce in there. More poppies right there. Here's the only apple the tree's holding this year. Got one last year. More lettuce. Poppies. Anise blue hyssop coming up here. Poppies in the back. There's even a squash coming up right there. This is called a gualnetia. And you've got two blueberry plants here. Right at my feet is a yarrow plant, French sorrel, horseradish, rhubarb, lupine, mint. I'm now underneath a red gold nectarine tree. There's tiger lilies, more poppies, lettuce, nasturtium, basil. This is a beet. Strawberries. Some basil. And then this is a random locust tree that I just keep pruning back, which is a nitrogen fixer. We'll come back here. So here's that Shipova pear again. An asparagus patch. There's some garlic chives coming up. Here's the asparagus. This is now a Santa Rosa plum. Underneath that are some more garlic chives. There's the garlic chives underneath the nectarine tree. Nectarine is holding some nectarines this year. While we're here, this cave in the back is all blackberries. Come by that in just a moment. So you have garlic chives underneath this, more poppies. There's beets right here at the front. Poppies. This is a hollyhock. This is lovage, a tiny little fennel plant or dill, not sure. This is a I think collard green or broccoli that overwintered. And I'll just spread these seeds all about. This is more perennialized garlic. Tiger lilies. Those are 3 currant bushes, a black, red, black. And then this stuff is underneath a Flavor King pluot. And to my right is my cold box, which I lay windows over in the winter. There's a bunch of stuff growing in there. This is a borage plant. Bees love borage, and these flowers are edible. This is where we were getting lettuce from over the winter. Here's that honeysuckle from the other side. There's those tomato rows from this angle. I'm underneath a Shinseki Asian pear. We've got a few pears on it. Underneath that were daffodils. There's nasturtium. I have a tiny little nursery because I'm not putting any energy into it, but if my cuttings last, then I have free trees next year. Some Egyptian walking onions and Swiss chard. Underneath that is parsley, more beets, lemon balm, echinacea. That's a goji berry, more verbena, and there's the currants again. So underneath this little trellis here, I sort of made a raised bed from logs, and then we have lettuces, radish, and then more strawberries that just spread last year. This is what we call our top strawberry patch. There's some blueberries right there, and then that strawberry patch goes all the way around underneath this peach tree. You can see, you know, some get eaten by the birds, but there's so many. These are two gooseberry plants. This is a grape, some sort of green grape. Can't remember the name. Here's that perennialized garlic again. Alright, now we'll walk down the back. This is all those raspberries, or blackberries now. You can see each one of these has there's so many. It's all this lettuce growing here. This just came up this year from last year, just spreading seeds as the plants went to seed. This is a pawpaw tree. Underneath it is comfrey. Broccoli that overwintered. In the back behind that broccoli is another rhubarb plant. This is a gummy berry. Underneath this is what we call my grandmom's peppermint, because she had this for years and years and years. And then here's another pawpaw tree. Here's a honeyberry. I think I have 7 of these honeyberries. And then here's 5 of those blueberries. So you have 2 up there, 3 here. I built this big double fence trellis, so that fence is 8 feet tall, to grow these tall peas. And then at the base of the peas, there's tomato plants, which will be just tall enough to grab the trellis by the time these peas die. In the back here, we have a white currant. Here's those strawberries again. And then behind that, this tiny little green thing there is a maypop passion flower for passion fruit. Alright. Yeah. Alright, here's the back of that blackberry stand now. And then to the right, these blackberries are actually overgrowing red raspberries. So these are the summer bloom of a red raspberry that we have. And then the new growth, which are these down here, are all new growth red raspberries, which will give us raspberries this fall. Underneath them is a josta berry. Let's see if we can see. Here's a little josta berry in there. That's hard to see. Anyway, it's a josta berry. Here's a mint. It's called Alpine Mint. It's good. So these little triangles here are supposed to catch the rainwater. That's the idea, but planted in them is watermelons or melons. So we have different, there's 4 different plants grown in each one of these. And then this whole section, the plants will just grow out over all this mulch. And I have that going down to the bottom on this back side. Underneath this holly tree, so we cut the holly branches up. I built a little mushroom bed here and put some portobello spawn in here. One day if we get mushrooms, that'll be fantastic. This is a Fiddlehead Fern, or an ostrich fern, but you can eat the new growth in the spring. We have some lettuce here, and then there's some corn coming up. You can see these little corn plants. Over there is some spinach that's going to seed, and the holly tree keeps these shaded in the hot sun in the summer. Now we have this cattle panel trellis here that we're going to go through, and at the base of these are yard-long beans that'll climb up this trellis. That's a Schisandra vine, which will ultimately use this whole trellis. Schisandra vine, but for now, these yard-long beans. This is a lemon balm. Now we're on the back side of that red gold nectarine. Not too many, but we're happy with it for its second year growing. So here's the back side of that locust tree. This little stand here is for ground cherries, and last year there were thousands of them left on the ground, and that's what these are now coming up. So I just have to thin them out as they get a little bit bigger. Here's our raspberry section. So there's 4 different types of raspberries here. First growing up this trellis and down these lines are Bristol black raspberries. You can see how many are on each vine. It's pretty crazy. There's so many. Next to them are double gold raspberries, which are these. So these are gold raspberries. Then next to them are and golden raspberry, almost ripe. Then we have a Primark Blackberry. Here's the new growth on that blackberry. It's already 4 feet tall. And then these are red raspberries, Caroline red, that also give you a summer crop and a fall crop. If I turn around now, we have a hazelnut tree, or a hazelnut bush, with a blue columbine that's edible. Egyptian walking onions. There's squash coming up right there. Let's see, parsley, Swiss chard going to seed. There's even lettuce down there, and then more lamb's ears. Right next to it's another hazelnut. This is a McDonald and a Filbert, or a, that doesn't matter. This is cilantro growing up next to it. It's called slow bolt cilantro, and it's fantastic because it's really slow to bolt. And so these go to seed. This is its second year. I didn't actually plant it this past year, and when these go to seed, I just shake the seeds all over and they keep coming back. We have squash seeds planted along here. They're not coming up yet. Here's a honeyberry. To my right now is a serviceberry, a smoky serviceberry, with a hollyhock, more verbena, nasturtium. This honeyberry is at the base of a Rainier cherry with mint coming up around it. We have a Lapin's cherry with more mint coming up. Tiger lilies, yarrow, little bench. This little guy down here is a Nanking cherry. He almost died last year, but he came back. This is a lavender plant from seed this past year, or over the winter. More parsley, Swiss chard, garlic chives. These are leeks that overwintered right here. I've cut the one on the left 3 or 4 times to eat it. It keeps coming back, and now it's throwing up seeds. We'll spread them. This is a autumn brilliant serviceberry. There's an echinacea plant coming up there, with a fennel plant coming up right next to it, volunteer, and then garlic chives randomly. So here's another, our lower strawberry patch. You can see all the strawberries. It's pretty wild. This is a Honeycrisp apple, blue columbine there on the left. Behind it is more horseradish. Here's another cattle panel trellis. Another Nanking cherry. No berries this year, but they need 2 to make cherries. So that one that almost died last year, hopefully next year they'll both flower nicely and we'll get a bunch of cherries. Here's another honeyberry. And that honeyberry is at the base of a Hachia persimmon in its second growing season. We have more tiger lilies, a comfrey plant that's flowering. At the base of the comfrey is a little fennel plant. Here's some lettuce. Really cool dragonfly. So at the base of this sugarcane jujube, which has tiny little jujubes on it, that's so exciting, is a fennel in the back there, some leeks, some lettuce, it's another honeyberry, a giant yarrow patch, and more of that slow bolt cilantro, which is hiding this lead jujube, which also has jujubes on it. This overhead trellis has more of those yard-long beans at the base. And then another hardy kiwi. This is a female one. And then there's another male one here. It's kind of hard to see. Here's another gumi berry. This one's got tons of gummies on it. This will be our first year having those. Another honeyberry plant in the middle. We have corn coming up here, squash, a basil, a Northline serviceberry, more corn. That's a lingonberry in the back. Lingonberry and another grape that'll grab that fence. This is a pixie-cot apricot tree. And then at the base is mint, echinacea, another honeyberry behind it, some garlic chives, put some beet seedlings here as well. And then that brings us to the back, or to the beginning. Up along the house there, where it gets hot sun, this is a south-facing hill, are some fig trees, a yuzu citrus, and 2 pineapple guavas.